Welcome to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Thank you for listening to the Leader You podcast. Today, I am bringing on a guest that I'm excited to introduce to all of you. It's interesting that I made a new international friend just this last February. As many of you know, Rob is on sabbatical this year, and we ended up going over to Thailand and to Singapore. And we reached out to our MEA community, Modern Elder Academy, and I asked Leslie, which is the alumni director, if there were any MEA alum in Asia that we might be able to connect with. And Leslie told us yes, and she gave us some emails of the people that are over there. And so Rob and I decided to email some people ahead of time to say if they'd be up for a meeting for a meal or a coffee or a happy hour or something when we were over. There was none in Thailand at the time, and there was some in Singapore. So Rob sent out the email, and we thought, might as well take a shot. And four people, I want to say, four people responded and said, yes, I would love to be there. And I'd love, and Melinda was one of them. And Melinda ended up coming to lunch, but she couldn't stay for very long, but she still wanted to meet us. And she actually opened up her home. Her and her husband Dane opened up their home and invited Rob and I over to their house, to their beautiful penthouse suite overlooking the Lion City. It was amazing. They gave us first-class hospitality, people they have never met. They just opened their arms, and we had the most meaningful conversation in just such a short amount of time. The experience was so amazing that Rob and I actually wrote a blog about it, and MEA posted it. I think it was the May 5th episode or of the Wisdom Well. But it was such an amazing experience, and she and I connected on such a bonded level, and so did Rob and Dane. It was kind of a bromance, and her and I, we just bonded, and we had this mutual love for Brene Brown and MEA and all things, and we just connected. And so we've stayed in touch and through WhatsApp, and she's in Australia, her husband's in Singapore. But we got to know each other, and she's just a dear person. And she actually went through a really rough experience, and she shares that in the podcast. But I want to introduce you to her today and share what an amazing being she is. And so today you get the pleasure of meeting Melinda Hudson. She is a global citizen, community builder, and a lifelong learner. She's having lived as an expat over the last 36 years. She has experienced 11 international and 25 house moves with her husband, with their 3 incredible now adult children. It's pretty amazing. She's constantly asking what's next. Melinda created Me Search, a guide to living life as human becoming, not a human doing. This has led her to becoming an MEA alumni, which is how I was connected with her, Hoffman graduate, end-of-life doula, a grief educator, a children's book creator, and a founding member of Global Wellness Network through her involvement with the Contentment Foundation and Mimi. Experiencing life through the lens of her grandsons, she now chooses to live each day as if it was her first and not her last. Thank you for joining us today, Melinda. I'm so grateful to have you and to have you share your wisdom with our listeners. Let's take it from here. Thank you for listening to the Leader You podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Melinda Hudson. I'm just really grateful to have you here today, Melinda. So we met through MEA virtually, actually, an appointment that we met at a restaurant, and then you so graciously, you and your husband, brought us into your home in Singapore and met with us. We're so generous, and we have a friendship that we've continued to, do as best we can with you being in Australia, your husband being in Singapore, and us being in the US. So I think that for a long distance friendship and for people who met just recently, we've got something pretty special. And I wanted to share your journey and kind of how I just fell in love with your person, of who you are and your soul when I'm and our mutual love for Brené Brown that drives our husbands crazy. Um, so
Took all of 2 minutes to bring her up, Angie, 2 minutes.
yeah, yeah, 2 minutes. So let's just talk about, you know, first of all, let's talk hear your story, about, what were you doing in Singapore and what's going on?
Well, Angie, thanks so much for having me. I'm really humbled to be here today, and I'm super excited just to have another opportunity to always connect with you. Um, my story, it's so interesting, and I think I'll touch on just when I met you, Angie, and you shared your story. And it was so but what resonated for me was just how gracious you were in sharing, but also how authentic and vulnerable you were. And but you were your greatest cheerleader,
Mm,
and you had no qualms in sharing what your strengths were, what you were doing. And I was like, wow, so often it can seem like ego when someone tells their story, but actually, there's a way that you can tell your story that comes from your essence. It's
mm,
your heartfelt. And that's what came across for me. So I actually picked up a lot from you that day. I was like, normally I'm very quiet in the background. I'm always saying I'm a 2IC, I'm in the shadows.
mhm,
And actually stepping out and telling my story is something that I'm really working on,
yeah,
because we all have a story,
mm,
and everybody's story is valuable in some way. And so I guess my story is, I'm living a life I never would have imagined as the little girl that I grew up in. I've lived an expat existence for the last 36 years with my husband, same husband.
mhm,
And we've had 3 amazing children who are well progressed in their own lives and careers. We've had 11 international moves. We're just in the process of the 11th, which is me moving back to Sydney.
mm,
My Dane is still based in Singapore, so we're commuting. Another transition,
mhm.
and we've just had our 26th house move. So I'm bunking down at the moment, so that may be why things are a little bit distable. But um, that's sort of my journey, and that's sort of what you say, the elevator pitch, when you tell someone what you're doing. But what I'm learning to look at is that deeper truth.
Mhm,
What's the underlying story of people? And
mhm,
that's where I want to get to know people, is on that level. So I guess where you and I connected was, we moved up to Singapore, which was, our kids said we left home. They didn't. We moved up to Singapore just to have that, uh, another experience. We knew we weren't done with our expat lives,
mhm,
and it was the first move that we had without children or without a dog.
mhm,
And so I didn't have that instant community of, schools to tap into. I didn't have the girls with me, which was always, our nucleus family was so strong. You always have each other when you arrive somewhere.
mhm.
And I realized that this was a big transition period for me,
Yeah.
and real opportunity to look at, you know, I love the saying, when you're in the frame, you can't see the picture. So for me, it was the opportunity to step out of the frame
Mhm,
and look at the picture of me. And to do that, I just decided I had to, really, it was an opportunity to look at my whole life. What was I doing? Was I living through my values? What was my purpose? Had I just been on this roller coaster? Was I really being intentional in what I was doing? And so I embarked on a journey that I coined Me Search.
I love it.
It started off as a year, and I said, and it's all about researching me.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very um, indulgent. And but I realized actually it was the first time I really was doing something for me. I love to serve. I love to give. but it was a time really to take the time for me. And I
Were you
got buy-in
guilty
from all the
about
family.
that? Were you a little
Sorry?
guilty? Did you have a little bit of
Oh,
guilt, like, feelings for doing that?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I was taking time out to do, things that were for totally me focused
yeah.
and that I wanted to do, but everybody else does it, so why couldn't I?
Mhm.
And so it was an interesting that in itself was a challenge.
Yeah.
So I love to have fun with things. So I created a little logo for myself. I branded myself. I have an elephant, which is our family totem. I noticed all the symbolic threes with the ears, the backside that I draw, that sort of thing. And I said everything I do had to be M cubed.
Mm.
Anything I did for the year had to be mindful, meaningful, and Melindaful. So it was a very intentional sort of thing. So as my family know, I'm a total geek.
But I love it, like, you're very focused on what you want and what that is knowing what you need and what you want, that is part of the battle.
Mm, it is. So, I was very fortunate that I was able to do that.
Mhm,
And back to that sort of, that tapestry, I recognized that I was looking at the back of my tapestry,
mhm,
which is all mangled knots and threads and that sort of thing, and it doesn't really look like anything. And the year gave me an opportunity to turn it around, to reframe, to look
mhm,
at my story in a different way and see this rich story, and then identify this golden thread that had been consistent through my life. And it was a unique opportunity. And I worked out through what I did in that year that had been a human doing. I'd kept really busy because when we started our expat adventure, I wasn't able to work, had to step out of my career.
mhm,
I got known as a trailing spouse, whereas
mhm.
now I'm a blazing spouse. Um,
I've been a trailing spouse before too,
Hey,
that
find
term
the
is so
rainbow.
annoying.
Find
Talk
find
about
the rainbow.
some language that is wardrobe for the soul, right? Like, the trailing spouse.
I know. I remember a first dinner party we went to, on our first. I'd just given birth to our eldest daughter in America, and we were sitting at this dinner party, and it was a work function, and the gentleman next to me said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, actually, I've just become a new mum."
Mhm,
And he turned away from, and I went, "Oh," and I was a bit gobsmacked. And for the rest of the evening, he didn't talk to me.
mhm.
And at the end of the evening, I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "I'm really sad I didn't have the opportunity to get to know you. But I feel even sadder for you, you didn't have the opportunity to get to know me."
Good for
Because
you.
he just passed a judgment on me in that moment. But
Yeah.
it was interesting that there's that it was that one experience. And when I look back over this year of me search, I realized the impact that one little encounter had on me. It's
Mhm,
like a tiny subconscious seed that's sown.
mhm.
You know, you're not working, so you're not worthy of
Yeah,
my time.
yeah,
And that trailing spouse,
yeah.
and how what you do. I mean, I laugh with the family, gorgeous Donna Summers, she works hard for the money. And I used to bop around singing, I work hard for no money. But it's really recognized. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the me search has turned into an ongoing because I recognized through that process, human doing, I became a human being, and now I'm a human becoming. And that journey is continuing. My golden thread is weaving its way through my tapestry, and it's continually evolving. And so
Sounds
that's sort
so
of
good.
I don't know if that sort of gives you any clarity around my story.
It's
That's
incredible,
sort of
and I'm happy that I get to be a part of this, journey, especially where you are in this life in right now. We're in this midlife phase, and yeah, you start to become an empty nester, and then that whole identity and, yeah, just reinventing who you might want to be. Thank you for joining us on the Leader You podcast, sponsored by Black River Performance Management. Leader U is an important part of Black River's initiative to bring high quality leadership development and organizational performance improvement solutions. Leader U is one of our initiatives that features different speakers whom provide their expertise and perspectives on a variety of workplace topics. I invite you to visit our webpage at www.blackriverpm.com. That is www.blackriver, the letter P as in performance, and the letter M as in management. We offer a wide range of services from training to performance improvement, coaching, retreats, and group facilitation and strategic planning. Our focus is to assist people in better understanding how to lead effectively and impactfully through a variety of evidence-based tools and practices. So now, what are you navigating? What are the next things that you're navigating?
I feel now that I've, still looking at the back of that tapestry, if I continue on that analogy, it's, this, it's, thank you, MEA, is where we met, Modern
Yeah,
Elder Academy. I'm in the messy middle. I've
yeah,
got all this beautiful, rich, goopy, fabulous sort of DNA, and I'm waiting for my butterfly to fly.
yeah.
And there's a little bit of, I'm a recovering perfectionist, well, still in recovery.
Mhm,
So I have a hard time letting my butterfly come out. I'm great at letting things come to an end, the caterpillar, and going into that messy middle.
mhm,
And I guess it's those breadcrumbs of curiosity that
mhm,
I've been gathering along the way. And I know because I'm looking back now, or well, I'm looking forward, but I'm looking through this journey and seeing where it's led me. It led me to MEA, which is middle essence, which I think is adolescence with wisdom.
yeah.
Life is too serious, continue to have the fun, but we're a little bit wiser about how we have that fun, a bit safer maybe.
Not so cringy. Yeah, not so cringy. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, where is it going to lead me? The MEA. I've I came through. I did Hoffman process, which was like doing 10 years of therapy on steroids,
Mhm,
and through that, I met someone, and through them, I became involved with the Contentment Foundation, which is a social emotional learning platform, bringing wellness to the world. And that had one of the pillars is community, and that has been this golden thread through my life. I feel I've been a community builder. I am a community builder.
you
I
are.
had to build community to support my family wherever I am.
Mhm,
I never stop wanting to meet new people because you just never know what they're going to become in part of your journey.
right.
But I've also recognized one of the things I did was a life edit,
Mhm,
in that people come into your life, I believe, for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
mhm,
And your vibe attracts your tribe. And when you're not in a great space, maybe you're not, in a space of well-being, you can attract the wrong tribe.
mhm. I've done it.
So
Wrote the book.
yeah.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it. Cringy Angie's attracted some real cringy people. Bits.
It's so true, isn't it? Isn't it
It
so
is
true?
true.
So when you actually feel well within yourself,
Yeah.
and you're really, you can read all the things and you can come from up here,
Mhm.
but it's actually when it drops down into your heart space
Yeah.
and you actually feel it, live it, breathe it,
Yeah.
uh, that you really start to shine, and you attract those people
Yeah.
into your life.
And I think I was just talking in my last podcast about how hurt people and healed people heal
Yes,
people. And,
I love
like,
that.
you've done the work to heal and know who you are, what your value is, and it's not what you do, it's your essence and who you are and what you bring, and what a community builder, and I just know that you gotta be the glue for your family, because when I talk to you and I talk to your husband, and I haven't met your girls, but I can tell you they're probably would be lost without you. Like, I can just feel your
Ah,
strong presence about who you are, and anybody who is in that matriarchal place and is the glue for their family, literally, they don't know what their ripples of impact are for generations.
mm, mm. So true, Angie. so
Yeah,
true.
and
Thank you for
I
that.
yeah, and
That is
I can feel it, and literally, when we connected, I mean, Rob and Dane connected, and we did too, like, it was almost like, we'd been old friends. Well, you know, if you've been an expat, you do make fast friends, so I do get that, but it was super authentic too. It wasn't like anybody was trying to, like, be somebody they weren't. It was just real, authentic, and the generosity of you to have us over to your place because we sent an email, like, it's just mind-blowing, but, like, how do you know if you don't ask?
exactly, exactly. And that's one of the key things, I've been on my journey is was identifying to be more explicit. That was I have a catchword every year, a
Yeah.
watchword. And last year it was explicit. It was getting
Mhm,
explicit about how I communicated, explicit about identifying my needs and my wants and how I communicate that. Um, and I, and then this year it's it's about balance and finding, it's ongoing.
mhm,
As I said, you can have it all up here intellectually, but it's bringing it down. But it's those authentic connections
mhm,
that really, um, you know, community. You can only flourish in community through, and well-being can only flourish through connection.
mhm.
And so you can be well within yourself, but you need connection, and that comes through community. So, you know, I knew you were with MEA. You had been through MEA. You'd met Chip, and so for me, it was like, wow, this is amazing. MEA opened up a community to me, a smaller one through my APAC
Mhm.
region, but what a full opportunity to be able to connect globally
Yeah,
and have that connection with like-minded people
yeah,
in this phase of life. Um, we're not we're embracing this. This is such an amazing time of our lives.
yeah.
And I see that with you. I know we share another excitement in terms of your going to be a grandmother soon.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the, I feel I'm almost like Benjamin Button. I'm reversing in my age because I'm seeing the world now through this lens of
Mhm,
this 2.5-year old, and we've got an 8-month old, but the 2.5-year old is, you take him to the zoo and we're going, look at the giraffes, look at the elephants. And he's going, oh, and he's making all the noises. He goes, oh, rock. And he looks down and he's found this rock, which is the most amazing thing he's ever seen. And I just thought, we all focus on the big,
mhm,
things. And are we content or are we always looking for more, wanting to be more, or have more?
mhm.
And here he is just bringing me down to this space of finding joy in the smaller things.
Yeah, that's so
And I think you know, we can get so caught up.
mhm,
It's
yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm so
So, are you still considering or going down the death doula path?
I am. So, another interesting journey there, Angie. And years ago, I lost a very dear, one of my closest, my lifers, as I call them.
Mhm,
There's people I'm so fortunate to have in my life for
mhm,
my life, and I was lost at that time, and I didn't know how to support her. I was living in America at the time, and we're moving back, and I had 18 months with her. And as I do, I turned to books. I went to Barnes and Nobles and I walked around and I said, Universe, speak to me.
mhm,
And I found a book called Life Lessons, which was by David Kessler and Elizabeth Kubler Ross.
mhm,
And it was about the 5 stages of grief. But it was also, why wait till we get to end of life to have this acceptance? Why not live this way through our life?
mhm,
And it really enabled me to be with her as she needed me to be with her. There were so many questions I wanted to ask her, but that was my need. I
mhm,
needed to meet her where she needed to be.
mhm,
And so part of this me search, and I watched my father in law die, and how you die impacts how everyone grieves.
mhm,
And it was really hard, and it was hard to watch the family, and we grieve in character. And I felt grief illiterate.
mhm,
And so after that, I actually David Kessler had just created a 13-week grief education course, and then I found the end of life doula course through the University of Vermont, and so I did those two together, and it was really amazing learning, and
Mhm.
I also identified that grief is not reserved for dying. Grief is attached to any change in life
Mhm.
that you didn't happen. And,
Yeah.
as we go through these major life transitions and things, these are the tsunamis that we are, there's 4 or 5 that you face in your lifetime. We're always in transition, but the big ones. And as we ride this tsunami, there's grief attached,
Mm.
letting go.
Yeah.
Everything's heading south instead of going north,
Yeah.
in terms of the body. And,
Yeah.
my mind the brain's not as sharp as it used to be. And, so there's grief attached. There's those little incremental losses along the way.
Yeah.
And that's been really impactful. I my and the other part of that I do love is the legacy piece
Mhm.
with the doula work. Is that once again, everybody has a story which
Mhm.
needs to be heard and witnessed.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm exploring at the moment. The ultimate is I would love to have the privilege of guiding people through end of life. At the moment, I can't do that because I'm not in any one place for any period of time. Um, but I am on the voluntary. We have the BAD program, which just got passed here in New South Wales, the voluntary assisted dying. I'm a witness for that program. Um, it's just my personal belief everybody has a right to have control
Mhm.
at the end of life,
Mhm.
and something. Yeah, it's very. I'm very passionate about it, and this is part of my journey is finding an avenue for that of how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I'm excited to
Thank
hear, how that how that pans out when you get in one place and your family's together and you're just trying and then you're just going through different transitions. But I'm excited to hear, how that impacts you, um, and what your journey is gonna look like as you get to be in that sacred space, awe-filled space. Like, life and death are where we see a lot of awe. Um, you look at Dacher Keltner's research, and awe comes from birth and death, and it's something to the 8 pillars, there's a bunch of them, but those 2 are ones that really well, we all have to face the death one. We're all about the life and the birth, but the death part is something that we all have to come to terms with, that,
you.
our time's limited, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be so precious.
Exactly. And I feel for me, they say, "Oh, live each day as if it's your last." Um, Part of my journey is to live each day as if it's my first.
Mm,
And so, this, we celebrate birth, and we used to celebrate death.
mhm,
People died at home,
yeah,
and now they're predictably dying in hospitals, and it's different in different cultures. And that's been the beautiful thing is learning how different cultures celebrate life and the traditions. And it's the one universal truth that we all share, that we are
mhm,
going to die. And it's the one thing that we really avoid talking about.
mhm,
And so, I mean, I make my girls cry all the time when I say to them, if I die tomorrow, I just want you to know that I feel so loved. I feel so grateful that you chose me to be your mama.
mhm,
Um, I couldn't want for more.
yeah,
There's nothing, I don't want to leave anything unsaid. And I love the Swedish tradition of Swedish death cleaning, where you go in and you clean your home in preparation. So the greatest gift you can be for your loved ones is to be prepared for your death,
mhm,
because then they can actually breathe instead of trying to work out, what did you want sung at your service, or going through everything afterwards. And I feel for me, not being fearful of death actually allows me to live. It actually is liberating.
mhm,
And so people find it quite morbid. I've been reluctant to share about my EOL journey, but I don't want to do that. It's not morbid. It doesn't have to be morbid. And I think the fact that people find it morbid I can understand that because there's that fear around it.
Yeah, yeah, there definitely just is a fear of talking about it, and as if you talk about it, it's going to happen earlier or something like that, I don't know, but I am pretty comfortable with it because I lost my parents pretty young. My mom was 52 and my dad was 62, and so I have those kinds of conversations with my kids too, and also, like, let's try to make things happen. I don't know how long I'll be here, like, literally next year, I'll be the same age my mom was when she passed away, so I say those kinds of things, and it makes them like, "Quit saying that, mom, you're gonna be around a lot longer, you're so healthy," and they just, like, cringe when I say it, but I also want them to know that, like, I'm okay, like, I've been living an amazing life, and I am not going I'm okay with it all, like, I really am okay with it, so, doesn't mean that I want to, I want more time, I wanna see my grandbabies, I of course, I have preferences, but I'm okay, I've kinda surrendered to life as it is, not how I want or wish it to be, it just is what it is.
Mm.
I've come to this place in life where I'm accepting it as it comes, and I'm not gonna fight with it anymore.
And it's a beautiful place to be, just to surrender and allow yourself, to nourish yourself, to flourish,
Mhm.
to and some people feel that, it's you say, I'm just going to go with the flow, and that's sort of apathetic or but for me it's actually it just means that you're open. For me, I feel open to whatever is to come.
Yeah.
And
I feel
and
at
having
peace.
that
Yeah.
sorry?
I also feel peace of it's okay, like, whatever happens, I know that I'll get through it just like I've gotten through this much in life, right? Like, I will take whatever comes when it comes. I don't need to worry about things that haven't happened yet
Mm,
because, all I have is right now, and I don't know what tomorrow will bring.
no. No, well, that's where, I shared with you before, we were meant to have a catch-up call, and I actually asked to postpone it. We had had a, mass stabbing here in one of our big shopping malls in Australia, and it really took everyone by surprise. And as I shared with you, I happened to be in the mall at the time, and I was fortunate not to witness any of the stabbings, but I did. I was with a young 13-year-old girl who had seen one of the girls stabbed, and we were sort of we weren't really sure what was going on for about an hour. And everyone says, "How long was it?" But you just don't know time, and that just doesn't happen in Australia. And it was really interesting. At no time, as I reflected back on it, was speaking to the family and things. At no time did I feel. I just didn't feel it was my time. I can't explain it,
Mhm,
but I just felt able to be in a space to help others. I
mhm.
mean, who were having very traumatic reactions and experiences, particularly when we were evacuated. And I don't know, I just had this, as you said, an inner peace within me. And I felt it's come from, I said to my husband, we lived in South Africa, and it came from my training of how to survive in a carjacking. So I sort of thought, okay, where's my dangers and threats?
Yeah,
But all through the end of life, practice and what I've been learning, and then through my involvement with the Contentment Foundation. And interesting, you brought up DACA Kilter. So Daniel Kadaro, who created the Contentment Foundation, did his PhD under DACA, and so there's all these little threads that just keep bringing us together and tying us together. And I and I yeah, I just felt this inner peace of being able to relinquish and surrender to whatever was going to happen.
yeah,
And it was a really interesting feeling. And yeah, it's people were just sort of like, but as I
yeah,
said, I didn't feel threatened,
yeah,
but I
and
feel it's just
I think that you have a peace that brings peace to others, and I don't know, that your vibe attracts your vibe attracts your tribe, and literally, I think that you know, you are in this place where you do bring peace and you bring stability and you bring hope and you bring authenticity and there's so much power in all of that. And it is clear that your husband knows that you are super special in that area. And I could feel that too and how proud of you he is and I it just it just you guys inspired me and Rob too, and it was like, "Man, these we gotta figure out a way to see these guys again, whether we do a retreat together, whether we come to Australia, or whether you come to the States, or we meet you in Singapore, like, we gotta make something happen, because we just enjoyed our time, and we need a little bit more extended time."
We're 100% with you, Angie. It's just, the universe is working its magic, and we were meant to. It was just so easy. You know when it's easy,
Yeah.
and it just flowed with you guys. And honestly, we were devastated that we had another engagement because it was like, no, we just
"Hey,
sort
go
of,
party
and it was
tonight."
a, like
Yeah,
instant bromance between and you and
yeah.
I with the minute Brene came out of my mouth, and you were like, you know, and the men just turned and went, ugh. It was
Uh,
almost, here we
yeah.
go.
Do you remember this part? This is something that is kind of an aha for me that I got out of that moment. Do you remember when I said, "Brené Brown has changed my life?"
Yes.
And my husband looked at me and said, "No, you've changed your life."
Mm,
And then I said, "You're right." And but her research and her putting her stuff out there and her writing her books and her having her podcast, she's become my best friend that she doesn't know that she's my best friend, but she's become so, like, even though she doesn't know I exist, the fact is she was instrumental as a mentor and understanding shame and vulnerability and, and all of that, and the way she has, shown up in bravery and went against things and stood up for social justice things and the things that the research that she brings her research and her vulnerability and willingness to share that helped me to change my life, gave me tools, gave me a mindset and a perspective and language to navigate it.
mm. No, 100%. Her Atlas of the Heart, each
Mhm,
year I give, and my daughters and their partners, and I give them a book each year that has really resonated with me and touched me. I
mhm.
think there's a pile there that they have admitted they haven't really read a lot, but Atlas of the Heart was one.
Yeah.
I loved the way in her podcast with her sisters, she said, grab the book, grab a highlighter, and just go on a page because it was so, I didn't want to mark it. And now
Mhm.
it's just like, it's it's so worn and tethered. And I think you and I both love her quote. Like, as I said, when you told your story when you were at our house, and I was like, wow, in awe. And then I was like, okay, Melinda, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself. And she don't automatically, I could see that she's so brave, she's so courageous in how she tells her story. And yeah, let's put it out there, Angie. You and I one day in a room with Brene, and in my wish list would be Chip and Esther Perel,
Oh,
and then
let's
three
bring it on and Jacka.
wonderful,
Yeah, well,
yeah, yeah, and Jacko, and then
yeah,
I'll
why
bring
not
Dan in.
Oprah? And Arthur Brooks too.
And there are 3 wonderful, wonderful, well, I call them Aussie larrikins, and they've got a podcast called The Imperfects,
Yeah.
and they are bringing vulnerability. They invite you to have a cup of tea in their vulnerability house, and, yeah, I'd love to get all these people together, and I just think there's, I could see the fireworks, the magic in the universe happening.
Yeah.
So, put it out there, Angie. Brene, one day, hopefully, this makes it into your inbox
Yeah,
because
let's hope so.
but it's her humility too.
Yeah,
I don't, us talking about it, she still would be so humble and go, almost I can hear her saying, really?
yeah,
Just her impact
yeah.
is
The ripples,
incredible, but she's so
yeah.
reachable.
Yeah,
She's
just
so relatable.
ripples and ripples of impact by just doing the work and showing up, but really, I loved that when Rob said she didn't. change your life. You had to do the work. But she created a roadmap that helped me understand and navigate where I was, why I felt the way I did, and I had a language to describe it, and, um,
Mm.
and she put it out there. Not I mean, like, she just put it out there.
And I'm sure, and from our conversations that we've had, we're of that generation where we didn't talk in emotions.
Yeah.
And if you can, every area of your life, if you're stuck or there's something going on, there's always an emotion attached.
Mhm.
And if you can understand that emotion, then you've got the secret key to unlock and move forward.
Absolutely.
And, to understand that emotions come and go and they're there to teach us
Yeah.
the good and the bad emotions.
Yep.
And as you say, she gave us language. We were only taught happy, mad, sad,
Mm.
maybe glad. Um, and speaking of glad, that's another story with my Pollyanna. Talk about the ripples of impact in my life. Maybe I'll touch on that if we have time. But, angry, what is? That's an overarching emotion. If you dive down, is it jealousy? Is it, what's coming up?
Mhm.
And as you say, she really gave us that language
Yeah.
and that permission
Mhm. The limits of our
to
language are the limits of our world, right? That's and that's a quote from Lester Ludenstein. I can't remember his anyway, with the limits of our language are the limits of our world. I've also heard by Peter Crone, and I like this too, is that language is the wardrobe for the soul. And
yes.
so sometimes that language can be very constricting, but when we have something to express, then we can express ourselves and we feel better. And yeah, for sure. That's why I love doing all this emotion work because it's been something that's really changed my life. What are your thoughts about, like, what would be the message you would tell your younger self?
Wow. And oh, I think the message would be that I am enough.
Mhm.
Um, just to Dr. Zeus's words, be you, because nobody can do you better than you. And
Mm,
besides, everyone else is taken. But
yes.
the interesting thing is, Angie, I don't know about you, but back to this knowing everything intellectually, but
Mhm.
dropping down into that heart space. I think if I told my younger self, you are enough, she would hear it, but I don't know if she'd be able to really embody it.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, that has come through my journey, my
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
my experiential learning, my age, the wisdom that I've accumulated.
Mhm.
And so I think, and even looking back, one of the Swedish death cleaning is cleaning out my computer,
Mhm.
and I found things that I'd written years ago,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh my gosh, why did I not get that then? And
Mm.
the reason I didn't get it then is because I wasn't ready to hear it.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the stage to embody it. So I think I could share that, and I think that's the beauty of um, with grandchildren now is and our own children is, we always we talked in emotions, or we got more proficient at talking in emotions, but also embodying those messages, really drilling in those messages so that they sort of became a core of their essence.
Mhm.
And hopefully in that subconscious, it's embodied
Mhm.
and it's just innately there that makes them have grit. And so, and resilience to the grit to move through things,
Mhm.
um, and have that resilience. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for
great.
asking that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
I
a bit
love
of
it.
a.
I know, I think we need to have another
What
podcast.
would you tell your younger self?
I would
What
tell
would you?
I would tell my younger self definitely that, you belong and you matter and don't
Mm,
take it all so seriously. Like,
mm,
you're stronger than you think you are, and it'll
mm.
all work out. It'll all work out. It even if it's not what you plan, it will all work out.
And
Yeah.
do you feel that now? Can you embody that message now?
Yeah, I really do feel like there isn't much that I can do hard things, and I don't
Mm,
prefer it, but I can, and I can do hard things, and I can do really good things, and that's what that's what I wanna spend the next part of my life doing is giving back, I know what my purpose is, and I'm living it and doing it, and so I really feel blessed that I'm even in that space because a lot of people aren't in that space yet. But, you know, I had to scratch and claw my way there. And and I'm finally at a place of surrendering to life as it is, not just going with the flow and recognizing even if stuff does my ship overturns again in life, which it has, I'll be okay because I have people that
mhm,
surround me and care, and I'll get a life raft. I will get to the shore. I will make it. And if it's the end of my journey, then I do hope that I've left a legacy of love and compassion. And the people that were in my life know that they were loved and they don't ever have to second guess that.
mm,
Like loved, loved, loved. Doesn't mean I don't ever get disappointed. I mean, we get disappointed, we get all of that stuff, you're human, but, like, love beyond it doesn't even matter if I'm disappointed, it's just I'm disappointed, and I have to those are my emotions, I'm responsible for those, and I still love you.
mm.
Right? There's no love that's taken away because I'm disappointed.
No, no, it's still there.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you've come into my orbit. You've my our vibes collided
Yes.
in the universe.
Yeah. In
um,
Singapore, of all
it's the
places.
work that you have to and the opportunity because connecting with you, I've learned, and I feel that you just are totally living your eulogy as opposed to your CV.
Yeah.
You're living how you want to be
Yeah.
remembered. You're living how you want to serve. You're living, your legacy.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
right.
love
I fail some days, and some days I'm better than others, and that's okay too. I've become compassionate because the fact is I'm trying, I'm in the ring. The quote
mm,
about, Teddy Roosevelt that Brené Brown talks about,
yeah,
like, there's a lot of critics, but it's not the critics who counts, it's the person in the ring doing the work,
mm,
sweating like,
mm,
that's who matters is who's in the ring because you're always gonna find critics and people who are in the cheap seats, or armchair quarterbacks that think you should be doing or shouldn't or whatever. Just do the work and show up and be good. Like that's all you can do. That's what I have control over.
mm. And also the people who are the armchair critics,
Mhm.
it's looking at them through eyes of compassion and
Mhm.
thinking, I wonder what's going on from them.
Mm.
What's happened in their life.
Yeah.
That to be so judgy or critical or cynical or
Mhm.
that in Australia we call it the tall poppy syndrome. Anyone who's doing well, you've got to cut them down. You've got to keep them, in a certain space,
Yeah.
on an equal playing field, and celebrate
Yeah.
rather than celebrating.
I'll give you one more question then. This is one I really
Mm. Okay.
you might find this on a
Please.
Brené Brown podcast too. Do you think people are doing the best they can?
Yeah, I do believe that. I like to believe. I want to believe that. Um, Dane, my husband, uses a great quote always. Put your belief in people hat on,
Mhm.
and there's goodness in all of us, and it's just I feel some of us grasp the opportunity to allow it to shine more
Mhm.
than maybe others,
Yeah.
or we choose. And that was actually one of my catchwords this year was choice. Everything I do, I have a choice. I
Have
have a
you read
choice
The
how I
Choice?
wake up.
Have you read The Choice?
Oh no, is there a book? Is there? Oh
Oh
no,
my
another one.
goodness, yes. This is now
Really?
it recommended it in my last podcast. life-changing. So Dr. Edith, um, The Choice, she actually Viktor Frankl was actually that wrote Man's Search for Meaning was actually one of her mentors, and she survived Auschwitz. And,
Oh,
she talks about it. She's incredible, and it's right up your alley. So I wanna hear after you read The Choice or listen to it because
okay, I'll
just
definitely.
her voice and her accent and her story is one of the most impactful stories I've ever heard in my life, and I will probably read it every year because there's so many gems in it that you always have a choice.
Oh, thank you for sharing it because I love that quote by Viktor Frankl: between stimulus and response is space, and
Yeah.
space is where the growth is. And it's where your
Yep.
choice is and
Yeah.
how you respond.
Yep.
So, me, choice was a word this year because, everything, it's a
Mhm.
choice, and it's a choice how you choose to show up.
Yeah.
And so, do you choose to show up with goodness? Everyone
Mhm.
doing is everybody, we all, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I
I'm a
think we
positive.
can leave on the choice. That's gonna be my word for next year. I already have my word for this year picked out, and it's still meaningful. So, I ask myself, "Is it meaningful? Is this something that is meaningful to me?" Do if it's not, I have to say no to it because, like, I have too many things going on. So, meaningful, but I next year, choice is definitely gonna be it. I can still think of it, but, like, I really focus on one thing at a time, right? And, yeah, I really
I
love
think
that. I'm super excited that I got to have you on here and I got to have a conversation with you and that our times aligned because you are in Australia and I'm in Idaho. And I'm grateful for you sharing your journey and where you are. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they find you?
via LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, just Melinda
Okay.
Hudson.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and Angie, thanks so much for this opportunity. I mean, it's so fun just to talk. It's part of the journey to putting myself out there, talking in a
Yeah.
public forum.
Yeah. You
um,
did great.
I'll do it. Yeah. So thank you for this opportunity. It's another sort of way for me to grow and extend
Yeah, and be
and
brave.
flourish.
I'm proud of you for
Yeah,
that because I know you were like kind of nervous about it. I'm like, no, you're gonna be fine because we're just having a conversation just like we did in your living room. Like seriously, it's that simple because there's no preconceived anything. It's just being authentic. And I think that right there is what's the power, just being authentic and being yourself.
absolutely. And embracing our weirdness, as where Brené would say. Have to
Yeah.
finish on a Brené.
Oh yeah, be awkward, brave, and kind. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you all
My
for
pleasure.
yes, and thank you all for listening to the Leader U podcast. If you found this to be helpful, please subscribe and share with somebody. This is how we know that the work is having impact and that people are enjoying it. So thank you again, and we love you.